Brock Turner. I'm your original supporter here on YouTube. I'm sure everyone remembers the Brock Turner case, the Stanford swimmer who was accused of sexual assault back in 2016. And the mainstream media really whipped this case into a frenzy by putting out the fake news that Brock Turner was a rapist who raped a woman behind a dumpster, when in fact he never raped anybody or was even charged with rape. But this was about the same time that the Me Too movement started gathering steam. So with Brock Turner being a privileged white male, the feminists and the liberal media were able to whip everybody into a frenzy and paint this picture about how Brock Turner was this evil white male rapist. And everyone bought into it. There wasn't a single person defending Brock Turner. Now, at the end of 2016, MTV News put out a video titled New Year's Resolution for White Guys. And in that video, Brock Turner got a mention when one of their takes was basically addressing Brock Turner's judge and criticizing him for supposedly letting Brock Turner off so lightly.
Oh, and if you're a judge, don't prioritize the well-being of an Ivy League athlete over the woman he assaulted.
Now, the responses were interesting that were coming from what was supposed to be the anti-feminist side. Out of the probably hundreds of responses to that video, everyone either glossed over that argument or they threw Brock Turner and the judge under the bus.
If you're a judge, don't prioritize the well-being of an Ivy League athlete over the woman he assaulted.
Brock Turner? What? That doesn't have anything to do with being white. That has to do with the judge being a complete asshole. The judge is a fucking retard, no doubt about it. But
oh, and if you're a judge, don't prioritize the well-being of an Ivy League athlete over the woman he assaulted.
Yeah, one judge, one story. So let's talk to all white people?
Oh, and if you're a judge, don't prioritize the well-being of an Ivy League athlete over the woman he assaulted.
that has nothing to do with being white.
Where is the connection between the judge being white and him letting a rapist off easy? What's the connection? I think we can all agree that this judge is a horrible person, but you're implying that he's a horrible person because he's white.
And what was missing from every last one of those responses is the pushback to the complete fucking hysteria, the complete hyperbolic overload, all that was being generated by the feminists and the liberal media.
I'm going to begin our program today with a gut-wrenching story that has gone viral. A story that we will spend most of this special and highly unusual hour sharing with you. It is a rape victim's letter to her attacker.
Raping a woman behind a dumpster, rape, after he was convicted of raping an unconscious girl behind a dumpster. Now, Brock Allen Turner got 6 months in jail for raping someone.
Rapes a woman behind a dumpster. Because you went to Stanford and you're good at swimming, you're going to get a slap on the wrist for rape.
He's not leaving jail empty-handed.
You mentioned hate mail. What kind of volume are we talking about?
At large amounts of mail. Large amounts.
What was this judge thinking? I don't know what he's thinking, but I know what we can do about it. We can try to get him off the bench.
That sentence setting off a firestorm. Persky saying he even received death threats.
Now, you got to keep in mind, guys, this whole thing, this whole hysteria that was being whipped up was all over a finger touching a vagina during a drunken hookup in the gray areas of consent. And here this judge that presided over this case got harassed and drummed out of his spot on the bench. He received death threats. He was harassed at his home. And here comes MTV News criticizing and dogpiling on the judge as part of their Shit on White Guys video. So anyway, at least one person pushed back against the hysteria.
If you're a judge, don't prioritize the well-being of an Ivy League athlete over the woman he assaulted.
Oh, fuck. Not Brock Turner again. Because of the consequences of his actions, his life is ruined. He had a promising swimming career, Ivy League college education, promising career. That's all over. 60 years from now, when he moves into an old folks home, he's going to have to go down and register as a sex offender. Now, he brought all that on himself, but you guys can't stop pissing and moaning about the fact that his life didn't get ruined hard enough. But I haven't heard a peep from you fuckers about these cases. Roll that footage.
Back in 2015, a Somali at the time aged 17 raped a 12-year-old Swedish girl. He was found guilty of the rape of a child and was sentenced to 180 hours of community service.
So shortly after the MTV video, I had planned to make an entire video about the complete fiasco that the Brock Turner case had become. And that project got put on the back burner for a while. I did finally release my video titled Brock Turner and the Pussy Pass, I believe around late 2017. And in the video I pointed out again about what bullshit it is to be so hysterical at the judge about this supposedly light sentence that he handed down to Brock Turner. So I did a pretty fair assessment of whether or not that sentence was a little bit too light. And I found a case very similar to Brock Turner's in the UK. And what was interesting about this case is that the victim was male and the perpetrator was 3 females. Now what these 3 females did was purposely and maliciously ply a man with alcohol. Then while he was too drunk to defend himself, they stripped off his pants and grabbed his penis, which is supposedly exactly what Brock Turner did, but this time there was clear-cut no consent. They did all this maliciously. They plied him with alcohol, stripped off his pants, grabbed his penis. They molested his anus. They stabbed him with scissors. They cut his hair with scissors and slashed his clothes. So this was similar to what Brock Turner was accused of, but it was in fact a more severe crime than what Brock Turner was accused of. The jail time that these women ended up serving was about 15 months for one and 5 months for the other 2. Very similar sentences to what Brock Turner got for a much worse crime, and no outcry at all. And what was most interesting about this case is this judge actually had to ignore the fact that the perpetrators were women so that the judge could muster up a sentence that was fitting for that type of heinous crime.
Drunken girl gang jailed after posting sex attack of amateur footballer on Snapchat. A drunken gang of girls who took Snapchat photos and videos of a ritualized humiliation sex attack on an amateur footballer has been jailed. The presiding judge was even quoted as saying, "I sentenced 3 people for glorifying in the humiliation and degradation of a fellow human being." But by far the most interesting thing that the judge said was this sentence. Judge Graham Knowles, QC, said he sentenced as if it had been 3 men on a female. "I sentenced 3 people for glorifying in the humiliation and degradation of a fellow human being," he said. He said the video and images were profoundly disturbing. He sentenced Gillard to 31 months and Cunningham to 10 months imprisonment. Jones will be sentenced at a later date.
They grabbed his penis. This is exactly what Brock Turner did to his victim. They did it maliciously, premeditated, just for harm, and they also committed several other brutal acts, including cutting him in the anus with a... And as stated earlier, the sentences were 31 months, 10 months, and 10 months. And if we go by these UK stats for prison early release, it says here that women serve only 46 to 49% of their sentence before they're released early in the United Kingdom. So with this in mind, we can safely assume that we're looking at 15-month and 2 5-month sentence for the 3 girls. Now, as for the harsher sentence for Gillard, she had previous convictions. Her children were present at the time, and her children were exposed to this. The other 2, we can safely assume that they're only going to spend 5 months in jail. Now keep in mind this is for a worse crime, because on top of grabbing his penis while he was passed out, which equals it to the Brock Turner case, they brutally cut his hair and clothes with scissors. They also stabbed him in the anus with the scissors. They also maliciously and with premeditation intentionally humiliated their victim. So in conclusion, I think it's safe to say that these 3 women were sentenced very similar to Brock Turner. And this outrage over his case about how lenient the sentence is was simply a bunch of feminist and regressive hyperbole. and it's hyperbole that dumbass cucks like Chris Reagan, Andy Worski, and Armored Skeptic bought into. So I thought my 2017 Brock Turner video went pretty well. I thought I put out some pretty well formulated arguments, and I demonstrated, if anything, that Brock got a too harsh of a sentence. But I was kind of taken back a little bit by the response to the video. It initially did not get a whole lot of views, and even more telling was the fact that I got 0 comments in the comment section of that video, which was very unusual for me. And what that told me was this was just kind of a hot potato issue, and really just no one wanted to bother with it. No one wanted to push back against the hysteria. And this is what the feminists rely on in these situations. They count on a certain number of men to tip their fedoras. Then they rely on a certain number of men to be apathetic and sit on their nuts. At that point, they tip the majority, they win, and more men's lives get ruined with this bullshit and this hysteria. And they also defended Brock Turner and pushed back against the hysteria in a live stream with actual Justice Warrior and no bullshit. And that was in early 2018.
If basically like you keep asking a girl and then she's like, okay, fine, because she doesn't want you to ask her anymore.
Well, yeah, that's not rape. I mean, she said fine, right?
Yeah, or she.
See, no, we can't roll over on any of that shit. These feminists are going to take it too far. And that, Sean, that brings up an interesting point, is where you thought that, like the Brock Turner case, inserting the fingers in a vagina without consent should be considered rape. You agree with that? That's your point of view?
Oh,
So,
what I said was in that video, and I'll make it clear, is that in California they consider forcible penetration with a penis rape, right, into the vagina. That's the only thing they consider rape in California. If you're going to complain about Brock Turner's sentencing, like, acknowledge that A, he was not convicted of rape, and B, you have to complain about the law that's involved. So I'm not saying all sexual assault should be rape. What I'm saying is, like, I don't see much of a difference in terms of traumatic effect of, like, you forcing like an object in somebody or you forcing your penis in somebody.
but that's the whole. It's how the laws are gynocentric, and you have to realize that, because you put your fingers in the vagina, that's considered rape in some states, but nowhere can a woman grab a man's penis and that be considered rape, because isn't that the equal assault for a man, is to just grab his penis, since we're talking about fingers.
And I think Brock Turner is a cunt, and I wish he was in jail for longer.
Mike, you want to take
Well,
that?
you need to go look at my video, and I explain how 3 women in Great Britain were sentenced about the same as Brock Turner, and we just went over a guy who got raped and got brutally raped, a 12-year-old, and got community service, and not a peep from the fucking feminists about that.
Yeah.
Brock Turner got his life ruined, you know.
Yeah, I still think he earned it.
Yeah, but Turner, what people don't realize is that Turner was convicted of assault. Like, he was convicted of a low-level sexual assault. That's what he was convicted of, right? So the sentences for a first-time offender on a low-level assault are not like out of line with what he got. Like, a lot of people think he got convicted of rape.
Sharing with you, it is a rape victim's letter to her attacker.
Raping a woman behind a dumpster, rape, after he was convicted of raping an unconscious girl behind a dumpster. Now, Brock Allen Turner got 6 months in jail for raping someone.
Rapes a woman behind a dumpster. Because you went to Stanford and you're good at swimming, you're going to get a slap on the wrist for rape.
You grab a man's penis without consent, that's the exact thing as putting your fingers in. That's digitally assaulting somebody.
I don't know if that's 100% equivalent, because being
that's why the laws are gynocentric. And I can explain one thing. If two people knocked 2 people down and forced oral sex, if one was a man, one was a woman, one of the perpetrators was a man, one of the perpetrator was a woman, under the DOJ laws, the man would be accused of rape, the woman would not, because they go by penetration, and they don't have equivalence for the other side. It's a lesser offense. It's gynocentric.
I would think that should be equivalent. Like, if you're like a girl and you force like a dude to like like
Yeah, but
go
it should
down
be,
on you.
and men don't. There's so many manginas going on their side, and they're making the law stricter and stricter, and like this Me Too. Men need to man up and say, fuck this shit. That's not
Yeah,
rape, and stand up. Everyone threw Brock Turner under the bus. All he did, if you really look at what he did, yeah, he did what he was wrong, but he was just almost passed out himself.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of Brock Turner as a person, not just what he did. He just seems like an arrogant cunt, and I don't like people like that.
No,
Yeah,
I didn't.
Also, one of the things I don't like about Turner is that he also gives he wants to give speeches on like the dangers of alcohol. It's like, no, dude, I've been drunk a bunch of times. I never messed with a passed out girl. I'm not a big fan of Brock Turner, but I think that case gets way overblown.
Okay, you heard Sean say that he's never messed with a passed out girl, even when he was really drunk. Now, I'm sure Sean has been a perfect gentleman, but the point I made next, which I did a poor job of making, by the way, is that most of us guys with a little bit of experience under our belt, we've been to wild drunk parties, bars and nightclubs, strip clubs. We've had hookups and makeout sessions. Some of us, a lot of crazy stuff. And keep in mind, this is pre-Kavanaugh. But the point I was trying to make was, with this feminist Me Too witch hunt bullshit, that if you ever become successful and famous, they're now going to drag you down. They're going to find something in your past, and they're going to twist it around into sexual harassment or sexual misconduct. And we saw that come to full fruition in the Kavanaugh case. The Kavanaugh case was a clear-cut case of the Me Too movement bullshit and its attempt to strike down men as they rise up and come into power. And that we as men need to fight back full force against this Me Too bullshit. None of this, well, Me Too has done some good things. Fuck no. Me Too, at its very, very best that it can be, arguably, is nothing but revenge. It's not justice. Justice is done at the police department with a police report, not a social media witch hunt and other types of drummed up bullshit. That's the point I was trying to make, and I did kind of a poor job at doing that. You've never been super drunk and with a woman who was like in her panties and you were stumbling around and maybe your hand touched her ass without consent or something, Nope. I mean, shit happens.
I don't know, Mike.
Okay, let's take a look at the Brock Turner case for a little bit. Now, all indications were that this was a simple drunken hookup at a party. Brock was seen fingering and grinding on his victim at a point where she appeared to be completely out of it and inebriated by the alcohol. If you received consent prior to them passing out, what's your responsibility for noticing that the person passes out? What's your time limit? How many seconds do you have to stop the act? You see, these things are very nuanced, and the feminists count on that so that they can slowly tighten the screws. For instance, first they came out with no means no, which means you can't pursue a girl that's playing hard to get. Then they had yes means yes, which means her being passive and compliant is not enough. You have to have a clear, concise yes from her. Then we have to have an enthusiastic yes, and the bullshit just keeps getting worse, guys. There's no evidence that Brock knew she was passed out and then took advantage of the situation. Evidence shows he had prior consent. So here's what the prosecutors did, and you guys got to understand that these prosecutors, they'll do whatever it takes to win. They took her drunken regret and they blended it with the fact Brock touched her when she was passed out to kind of trump up this no consent. Now, is Brock completely innocent? No, he's not. He's responsible for the drunken mess that he created. I think he should have been charged with drunken disorder and failure to render aid for running away from his victim. However, he did not take advantage of a passed out, non-consenting victim. And that was never proven. You know, guys, it's kind of like this these days. Imagine you're with a girl and you're having a hookup. Now, imagine there's a referee, striped shirt and all, standing over you, monitoring the situation and looking for violations. Only if he throws a yellow flag, It's not 15-yard penalty or a $50 fine. It's your life being ruined. And you have to keep in mind, the referees are really tightening up on the penalties. And it's going to get worse unless we push back, gents. And there's one interesting case in the whole Me Too bullshit, and that's when American atheist President David Silverman got canceled in his own Me Too witch hunt. Now, you have to keep in mind that you are not going to hold a high position in the liberal atheist community unless you kiss the ring of feminism. In fact, in the very first video I ever made, I accused Aaron Ra of being a feminist for just that reason. So of course, David Silverman declared himself to be a loud and proud feminist. So he put himself in a pretty awkward situation when the same Me Too movement he clapped like a happy seal to when they came after Harvey Weinstein, then turned around and came after him. And it was funny because in his interview with Karen Straughn, Karen was trying to get it through his thick skull that it was the very feminism that he applauded is what destroyed his life.
But what we're dealing with Beth is just, and Rose, frankly, is just, it's counter to every concept of humanism that I'm aware of.
Well,
it's counter to compassion. It's not the feminism I grew up in. I mean, that's not feminism. That's not my feminism.
Well, look at it this way, right? Feminist ethics, according to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, it says that objectivity, impartiality, and principles and things like that are male constructs. She can't retroactively revoke it from somebody who didn't. All of this, those don't matter within sort of the academic branch of feminism, right?
That's ridiculous. That
It is.
sexualizes women. That will create sexualizes women. That will create. I mean, the ability for a woman to retroactively remove consent from any man she's ever had sex with and get unanimous support from her echo tunnel is a very dangerous thing from a societal standpoint.
I forget whether it was on Jezebel or
some cases.
Assuming it in some cases, wondering it in others, right? I live in a small neighborhood.
You know, having come from that mentality, and as I'm being forced to reckon with the inconsistencies of the feminism that I once loved and the reality of what it is today.
And they didn't this year. They went to the American Bar Association and asked them to endorse affirmative consent as something that should exist in the legal statutes. And the American Bar Association initially agreed, and then the other members of the American Law Institute wrote them a letter saying, "What the fuck are you thinking?" Right? And then they backpedaled on it. But I mean, it's a matter of time before that gets into the model penal code and the American Bar Association decides to endorse it, and then it'll become law. It's already law in Canada. So I'm just like, you're getting seriously, you've been red pilled like for 16 straight months, and you're getting, I'm like applying more red pills as a suppository with a sledgehammer here.
Yeah.
So,
well, and in preparation for this interview, I watched a lot of your stuff. I watched several of your videos. So yeah, the red pills are going in all of my orifices. But I mean, seriously, I mean, I have been a feminist for 30 years. You know?
Yeah, that doesn't.
March was a Take Back the Night march back in the 1980s.
That doesn't get you any credit.
Nothing. The anti-humanism, the glee that my former friends exhibited at my demise, at my career's demise, the glee, the joy, another one down, another one bites the dust. It's not the feminism that I have been a feminist for decades.
So that's what we're dealing with, this Me Too bullshit. Laws are getting worse and worse with affirmative consent. It's getting riskier and riskier for men to deal with women. More and more men's lives are being ruined. And the David Silverman case is a perfect little lesson that you need to stand against these movements 100%, or before you know it, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass and ruin your life. And Brock, if you're listening, which is very highly unlikely, whatever you do, do not take this horrific advice from this grifter.
This is an open letter to Brock Turner. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I'm here to offer you advice that I insist you take. You did nothing wrong that night. I am thoroughly convinced of this. She has monetized her fake victimhood. And now, Brock, I'm telling you, it's time for you to monetize your actual victimhood. I understand your impulse to run and hide from this. So what I'm telling you is that there are people out there who would support you with money. That, Brock, it is time for you to capitalize, okay? Because I'd rather be hated and rich than hated and struggling. So there are places you can go. Feel free to come to my channel. I don't even care. I'm sure it would be a ratings boom for me, come to think of it. So help me help you. How about that? But it doesn't matter. Go anywhere. Go to Howard Stern. White noise. And through that sea of white noise, you will hear another noise, and that's cha-ching, which is you earning money that you would have been earning if you had been left alone by the world, free to finish your college degree and get a job like a normal person. No, the world doesn't have it because you're freshman Hitler. It's sickening. The whole thing is sickening, and I will not rest until you have financial independence. Write a book, find a publisher, start a podcast. It doesn't even have to be that. You literally could be like, I have been railroaded. This is all bullshit. Here's my GoFundMe. If you want to help support me in my life, please do. If you were to do that, you would make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Come out of hiding, tell your side of the story. Do not be shy. Do not be apologetic. Be honest. Be strong and make money. Are you listening to me? The time is now. Do not let Chanel Miller become a millionaire without you becoming a millionaire. I demand this of you. Your life will benefit from this decision. I encourage you to do it, and do it now.
Yeah, there are laws on the books strictly preventing you from making money off any crime you've been convicted of. Not to mention that the fact that the way that social media is today, they would sabotage, blacklist, deplatform, threaten, harass, and reject any attempt you would make at making money off of this situation. It's really absolutely retarded advice there. And the only person who could possibly benefit from that deal is the precious clout that this grifter is so aggressively going after. Oh, and by the way, as he sticks his nose firmly up your ass so he can butter you up to get you to come forward, this was his sentiment back in 2016.
That the prison sentence might have a severe impact on it. No, you conservatives would be the first ones to say, goddamn right, it should have a severe impact on him.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Nobody's saying don't punish the guy. He is going to jail. It's on his permanent record. By the way, his name has been dragged through the mud, and he will forever be adversely affected by this event. His life is severely fucked, and rightfully so because he did a terrible thing.
So yeah, Brock, just ignore all that bullshit from the clout chasers. And I think you absolutely know that the best advice is to just lay low. Grow a beard, change your first name, make money online where you're anonymous. Travel the world, start a life in another place where your name and face are not so notorious. So there it is, all laid out, folks. It's pretty evident what we must push back against. This overzealous, hysterical Me Too movement and these ridiculous new consent laws. They're destroying relationships, they're destroying families, and they're destroying men's lives.
Chocolate.